right, what's up, hybrids? You are tuning into the very first episode of the Fandom Hybrid podcast. My name is Hanako, and I want to thank you for joining us. In today's show, we're going to be discussing Season 2, Episode 1 of The Boys, which can be streamed on Amazon Prime Video. Today, I am joined by my friends Mike, Anthony, and Lori. What's up, guys?
Howdy.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, so everyone is doing okay? Let's do a COVID check first. How's everyone doing with what we are in month 7 or month 6 of quarantine, mask wearing, social distancing? How's everybody holding up?
Not bad. I mean, we had a scare because my wife's sister had it and she's a nurse. So I had to sit out 3 days while we were waiting on Michelle's results because Michelle was around her.
Oh.
And she tested negative, so it was fine. But we're just gonna keep an eye just in case. And I've been extra masky recently, so.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, other than that, I feel like I'm in a dungeon marking the days with like a rock. Like it's been 60 days since I've seen you outside. But no, I mean, other than that, it's it's what it is, Basically.
Yeah, we're doing the same, just kind of trying to make it through the month, get to the next day.
Yeah. I think Anthony and I are both in kind of the similar situation because we're both working in education, so we're kind of sort of back at work. Students are virtual learning, but we're still working. And how's that working out for you?
It's fine. As you can see, we're doing testing over here.
Ah.
So, just seeing the kids every day, watching them take a test several hours a day is so, exciting. And
are you live or video?
It's live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have them up on Zoom and then testing them through another program.
Okay.
The ones that do turn their cameras on.
I think I'm the same person or video.
Oh no, we're all virtual right now.
Okay.
It's all virtual.
How about you, Lauren?
I've been home since March 16th. I've been remotely working for the last 7 months, and you guys are literally the first people that I've talked to other than my family in 7 months.
Oh, wow.
I take my husband to work because he's considered an essential worker. We work at the same place. So I go out twice a day to take him to work and pick him up. And I get my deliveries through Instacart and Amazon. And I do a little DoorDash. And actually, quarantine hasn't really been bad. None of my family has been affected, thank God.
Good.
And basically, secretly, I'm having the best time of my life. I get DoorDash delivered for lunch, and I still have a job. So I'm actually, and I lost 30 pounds.
Oh, hey.
Oh, that's awesome.
I must have picked them up.
Well, I'm actually, what the word is that we probably will be doing this on a permanent basis until who knows when.
Oh, wow.
So I'm literally living my dream right now.
Yeah, you've been getting caught up on a lot of TV and movies too, right?
I have watched everything. Everything. Last Sunday, I finished watching all 8 seasons of Castle. That's how desperate I am.
Oh, wow.
Yes! Someone else that likes Castle. I'm so happy. I love Castle. It's like I can't even find it. I have the DVDs, but I'm not to the point where I want to pay for it on Amazon. I'm like,
it's on Amazon, and you do have to pay for it, but it's still awesome.
I love Castle. But, well, see, I'm a Castle stan. Like, I'm a Nathan Fillion stan. Like, I've even watched almost all episodes of The Rookie. That's how bad I am.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's like, I mean, I think Fillion is like really underrated as far as like sci-fi actors go. It's like I wish he would have been able to play what's the name of the video game guy, Drake, because I think Tom Holland's coming out playing him.
Oh, Uncharted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it was almost basically based on him. But yeah. Okay, I'm diverting. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, since we mentioned Amazon, let's go ahead and get into this This episode, we are in season 2 of The Boys, which is a show based on a comic series, right, Lori?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and season 1 left us with a lot of questions, mainly in regards to Butcher, one of the main characters, his wife, who up until the last episode of last season we thought was dead. We find out that she's actually been living in hiding, protected, I guess, by Vought, because she had a child that came out of her rape by Homelander, one of the soups, and everything kind of starts from there this season. So what did you guys think of the first season, and then what did you think of the first episode of the second season?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to top the first moments of season 1, episode 1. I mean, like holding your wife's hands, and all of a sudden she's not there, and you only have her hands. You're only holding her hands, and it's like, I think the effects in season 1 were outstanding. Stories were awesome. I think, I really liked it, and it didn't get boring to me. So I thought it was really good.
No, I don't think anybody can use the word boring with this show at all.
Yeah, like Michael, I thought the first season was outstanding. I mean, it had a lot of moments that just wow moments, I guess you would call them. Like, did they really just do that? Like, especially that first scene when she just literally is obliterated, and you're like, wow,
basically vaporized.
Yeah, she's gone.
Poor Huey. He has to deal with that a lot in this show. Like, my daughter came downstairs while I was watching the episodes. I binge watched the first 3 episodes when they were released of season 2, and she happens to come in and out while I'm watching it, and she came downstairs, and it was, I think, maybe right after. Well, I won't get into future episodes, but there was a part, and she comes downstairs and she says, "Why is every time he's on the screen, he's got blood all over him?" And she's talking about Huey, and like literally every other episode or every few episodes, he is like splattered in someone else's remains, and that poor man. He's
at least twice an episode he gets splattered with someone's blood.
Right, and it's like literally been from the first episode all the way through now. I mean, we're five episodes into the season now, but he's just always covered in blood. What do you think, Lori? Now, Lori, you are a comic fan of the series, but you have not really watched the first season yet, and you just happen to kind of get caught up on the recap and then watch the first episode of the second season for this podcast. So what do you think so far? How does what you've seen so far hold up against the comics?
Well, let me just say, I did watch the first episode of season 1, and I watched the first half of episode 2 of season 1, and I really liked it. I thought it was very, very faithful. I just finished watching the season 2 episode, and I have to say that they did a really good job. It reminds me of the fact that you can take something that you've been reading for several years and put it on TV, Walking Dead, for example, and they just make it even more awesome than it was that you read. So I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to watching the next 4 episodes, and I think it's going to be fun.
Cool. So, let's see. First of all, season, and I have to say this since all of us are connected by different shows. Like we all have different shows in common, and one of the things that that needs to be known is that the showrunner for The Boys is Eric Kripke, who most of us know from Supernatural. And it's so cool because the first episode of this season starts out with one of our Supernatural favorites, Mr. Jim Beaver, playing in the scene. And it was so funny because Mike and I literally just watched this. We just rewatched the episode again. And I noticed that his name in the series is also Singer. His last name is Singer, which is a carryover from his character over in Supernatural. He's Bobby Singer there, and he's Mr. Singer here. But just from the first scene of the episode, you already know that the stakes are going to be high. They're talking about now the seven, the superheroes of the show are now they're going to be working with the military, and of course there's some negotiations and there's some kinks to be worked out, and we get to see Mr. Edgar, who is Giancarlo Esposito, amazing as always, in this scene, and just his interactions in this scene where he's trying to negotiate, or he's basically telling Mr. Singer what will and won't be done in terms of the seven joining the military. We see that he has this cool, calm, collected demeanor, like he doesn't get rattled, and yet he commands such presence, you know, and we already know that with him leading Vought, now that Madeline Stillwell is dead, it's going to be interesting. You know, there's about to be a lot of conflicts with these characters, and we see it a lot in the first episode. Homelander, as we learned in season 1, not just Homelander, but most of the seven, even though they're considered superheroes, we see that they all have kind of questionable characteristics. And I just want to get your take on what these superheroes or anti-heroes or whatever we want to call them, like what do you think drives these characters, like as far as putting on that public persona of being a good guy, and then you turn around and see them in private and they're all like so horrible. Like what are your thoughts on this version of superheroes?
Well, first let me say that Giancarlo Esposito is quite possibly one of the greatest actors ever. I mean, in everything he does, his work is impeccable. And watching the episode, watching him talk to Homelander, the way he did, like, son, you really don't want to go there, you know? Yeah. And you always get that air of confidence about him. Now, as far as the superheroes go, I think it all goes back to absolute power corrupts absolutely. Mm-hmm. And these people, they have all this power, and they're getting paid. So you also have the greed side of it. Homelander is worried about his popularity. He's worried about, you know, where is his polling numbers at. That's what motivates him. You know, and A-Train is the same way. It's about, you know, my shoes are selling like hotcakes. You know, he's making all this money. Mm-hmm. So when you look at, yeah, they're contracted to do good things, but they're at the same time they're paid based on their popularity. Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with I can't remember what it was I saw. I think it comes from Captain America. It's what the doctor told him. You get some power, and everything that you are comes to the surface. Like who you are is exposed. Mm-hmm. And behind the closed doors, you actually get to see them as they are. You know, who they really are.
And they are really despicable. Like the majority of them are like really horrible people.
But I promise you, I don't read the comic books, but I wouldn't doubt that they didn't start that way. Like if you look at Starlight, she came into it wanting to do good. Mm-hmm. But you can see over time, especially with, let's look at the Deep. The Deep has a lot of deep personal issues. But you can see with the power he has over time, it's just gotten worse and worse. You know, they start out doing good, and eventually it becomes more complicated. You know, that's what I think. I think they started out that way, and I think over time it's gotten worse. The same thing with A-Train. You can see how he started out as he's the fastest, and he was popular, and You want to do good, but then it becomes about the money and how popular you are and how much merchandise you can lose. And that combined with the power, you get the corruption. Eventually you get Homelander, who's just insane, you know.
I think with Homelander too, I think his probably comes from the fact that he was pretty much raised by Vought, and he was raised to have those values. So it's kind of like if you look at the seven as a whole and what we know about the majority of the characters that we get to see on screen, Homelander, Queen Maeve, A-Train, and Starlight being the most, you see the one who's been in it the longest as Homelander, and he seems to be the most corrupt of the group. And then you look at Starlight, and she's the one who's the newest of the group, and she seems to be less corrupted because even now, with everything that she's witnessed with Vought, she's still there trying to do some good.
Yeah, I actually kind of correlated with like the suits being sports stars, because you get the Deep who really couldn't cut it and got sent down to the minor leagues basically, which is Ohio, and he ends up becoming not trying to find himself again, ends up drinking and being approached by somebody who keeps giving him frescas for some reason. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, what's the deal with the frescas?
Yeah, but it's like I'm hoping they're going to get into that. But I really feel like as far as them being like sports stars, it's like, a lot of sports stars give that kind of persona when they're on. Like when they're playing, they're like, yeah, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Signing autographs and stuff. But when they're in private, sometimes it's been proven that they're entirely different people. It's the same way with movie stars. It's the same way with anybody that gets in the public eye. It's like you have basically two personalities. You have the one face that you see, on the screen, and you have the one face that when you take that face off, is the face that you have at home, and I guess this show kind of shows how each of them deals with it. Like, I don't think A-Train is not as toxic as Homelander is in private, and nobody really knows what Black Noir's deal is, because he really hasn't had a chance to show himself until the episode that just dropped.
Mm-hmm.
I will probably show something, but I haven't seen it yet, so quiet Hanukkah, I don't want to hear it. I really, you kind of see parallels in like how just like Anthony said, absolute power corrupts, absolutely, and you kind of see how that works and how it really. And this episode, when she gets with the other suit that can regenerate limbs and blackmails him, you see that you can kind of see that starting with her now.
That's
so
true.
You're willing to see. So it'll be interesting to see how far that goes.
I think that the issue that I have with all their different types of personalities and their behaviors is that usually when you have a superpowered group or a team, they usually have a unifying goal or factor that makes them want to be who they are, whether you're going up against a villain or you're going up against a corporation, or it just doesn't seem that how good or how bad they are from one scale from Homelander all the way down to Starlight. It just doesn't seem like they have never had a connection with, yes, they're getting paid, yes, they have superpowers, yes, they're popular, but they don't care, or they used to care, or they won't care unless something really makes them stand up to the plate. To me, watching this episode, I got the feeling that they're a team, but they're not really a team. They've never been a team. They're employees, and that basically is how they treat who they are. They are employees, and I think that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch, to see if Starlight can really, emerge from where she was with the Capes for Christ or whatever that was from the first season, that she can really become a true hero. None of them are actually heroes in the like Captain America heroes. They are they think they're heroes, they pretend they're heroes, but I don't see Homelander walking a little lady across the street just to do it, just to be nice. And I don't think he ever will, unless something happens where he has to literally fight for his life, his country, whatever, and stand up and say, yes, this is why I'm here. This is why I do this for Vaughn and for the country. I'm not seeing that in other. And as far as the Deep is concerned, I think that the Deep basically has a lot of issues. I know he didn't like getting sidelined, but sometimes you need to take somebody out for a while, and I think that he needs to get a lot of counseling.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it does kind of seem like they pulled these people, names. It almost seems like they pulled names out of a hat to put the team together. Like they just had like a lot of suits. They're like, okay, we need 7, so we had a group of 20. We'll just throw them in a hat and take out random people and put them together and see what happens. I agree with you. It does kind of seem like they don't have a common thing that makes them together. I mean, I think the other guys have more in common as far as trying to get rid of them. As opposed, they have more in common than the Supes do. So
you mean the boys, the boys team? Yeah.
The boys do, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Laura said. The Supes, the 7 was put together based on demographics. I mean, you have Homelander, and then everyone else was put on the team to fit a demographic to help promote hiring Supes to protect your city. I mean, you have to realize that all these Supes work for Vought, which is contracted to the cities to provide superheroes. Mm-hmm. Even when Homelander in this episode threatened to be like, maybe I should just go find someone else. My contract is up at the end of the year. We'll go see how, I can go work for someone else. I can't imagine that there are any other superhero companies that provide services like that, but I'm sure there are. Vought just happens to be the largest one, and they have the 7. But, they're always talking about demographics. They're always talking about polling. They're always trying to put up a specific image. All of this is to help generate contracts, which, like most companies, they want the government contract with the military because they pay buku money for anything. Mm-hmm. So to have superhero soldiers, of course, they want to pay, they want to get that contract with the government. I mean, that's what Mr. Ager is working on. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
All of it is really about the bottom line for Vought and for the 7 and all the other superheroes. Yeah.
Right. And so the other thing that I thought about with this episode, so we're talking about the way that Vought operates as a company. We know that the concept that they have with the superheroes is almost like the superheroes are influencers, like we see on social media, because their positioning and their ability to be considered for the 7 has to do with their stats, has to do with points, has to do with their popularity, has to do with their social media presence. All of that is included there. And in all of that, at the beginning of season 1, we are presented with this image of the 7, and they're supposed to be like these, I guess, the most popular, the best of the best. And then as the season starts moving forward, we start to see that image kind of breaking down. We get to see just how flawed these characters are. We see that the Deep is, like, almost from the beginning, we see that he is a sexual abuser. We see that Homelander is very narcissistic and has an ego, and if he feels threatened, he starts to attack. We see that a lot with him. He literally let a plane crash, in the first season. In this season, he's introduced to another superhero who's supposed to take Translucent's place. Mm-hmm. And he is a disabled, hearing impaired or visual impaired Supe. And, we see what Homelander does with him once he realizes what this guy's power is. He immediately claps his hands on his ears and renders him fully disabled, and says something about, did you really think I would let a cripple on this team? So we see where, that image of inclusion, that image of diversity is starting to break down. The thing that really interested me was you would think that with all of this and with the stats, with the numbers and with the popularity and everything, that Vought would do a little more damage control when it comes to Homelander, because we saw in season 1, Madeline Stillwell pretty much had him under her thumb, or so we thought, until the episode where he actually killed her for lying to him about his son. So there was a mention about there possibly being a coup from inside of Vought when Raynor was talking to Mother's Milk and Huey and Frenchie, and she mentioned that there might be an internal takeover attempt, and that was when her head exploded. And so I'm wondering, if there is an internal takeover, do you think it's coming from the top, or do you think it's coming from somewhere else within the company? And, we also are introduced to another superhero, Stormfront, who comes off, she starts off very strong. She starts off kind of, you can tell she's kind of mocking the system when it comes to Homelander and the way things are supposed to be run. So it's kind of like, is she the person that they're putting in to kind of shake things loose, or is this coming from the top with the way that they're just kind of letting Homelander do whatever he wants right now, and there's really no repercussions for him and his behavior?
I would think that if it's coming internally, I would think it'd be coming from the top, maybe from. Because Edgar seems like the type of person that definitely rubs people the wrong way. Because you saw he's used to people not questioning what he says. So anyone like that is always ripe for takeover. So I would think that there's somebody who probably is like on the periphery and hasn't been introduced yet, is probably plotting it, and maybe they won't succeed, but maybe the Supes will take it up and go past it. But another point, since you brought up Stormfront, I wanted to ask Lori, since she read the comic books, how do you feel about them casting it as a dark-haired white woman instead of a blonde-haired dude?
I briefly wondered why, and then I moved past it. But I have to, knowing what I know about how they put people in situations, I'm thinking that by making her less obvious as to what she really is probably going to be a sneak. It didn't really bother me, but I think the thing is that if you present them to be a certain way and you cast them that way, and then you flip it and they do the dark hair and all that, it's going to be one of those slow burns. So it didn't bother me.
Well, okay, I'm gonna try to think about this without the benefit of having seen the last 4 episodes.
Right.
I'm trying not to say things.
I know, and okay, so if you look at Stormfront's introduction, and you see that she is very savvy at the social media stuff. Like, she comes in, she interrupts everything, and she's live streaming and all this stuff. So it's obvious to us that she's a person that knows how to manipulate public opinion. And to me, that is a sign that this might be the person who, if there's going to be a coup of either the company or of the 7, it would come from her. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's looking at it without trying to bring in what we know is going on. But if you just look at just that perspective, here comes someone that Edgar has placed on the team, and under no uncertain terms is Homelander going to, you know, get her off the team, and Edgar make sure she stays on the team. It seems to me that she might be the one that is going to be a part of whatever coup it is, because I think eventually it seems like they're putting someone in place that's going to help them take care of this Homelander problem. because I'm sure after Madeline Stillwell dies, they realize they don't really have a lot of control over him.
Right.
You know, Mr. Edgar's a smart guy. He may rub people the wrong way, but he didn't get where he is by not being manipulative and not moving chess pieces around. So he knows he's going to have to deal with Homelander one way or another.
I think I mean, that scene in the office when Homelander basically confronted him, like, do you know who I am? And, you know, like you said, he was threatening to leave. The way that Edgar handled that scene when he basically told the backstory of how Vought came to be, how, you know, the founder was originally working for Hitler and then he switched sides, and just the whole cool, calm way that he spoke, that even when Homelander got in his face, like, he never lost his temper, he never looked frazzled. It was like one of those really, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's calm. It's almost like you're looking a serial killer in the face, and the serial killer is giving no indication of as to what he is. It was really, really creepy, but it was really cool in a way too, because Homelander comes in thinking he's got control of the situation, that he's the one that's in charge, and just like very smoothly, Edgar is like, oh no, you're not even the most important part of this. You know, now you can go, and you could see, I mean, Edgar turns to walk away and he's not fazed at all. And you can see like a whole gamut of emotions on Homelander's face. Like, oh, did he really just talk to me like that? And did he just really dismiss me? And it's like the realization, like, yes, he did just talk to me and get away with it. And he really did just dismiss me and get away with it. And it's like, there's nothing he can do. And then even going back to Stormfront's introduction, like I said, she comes in very bold. She comes in, you know, like you said, media savvy. She comes in, you know, and it's almost like everyone else on the Seven, in some way, form, or fashion, they're scared of Homelander, and he knows it. He knows he can intimidate them. He knows that he can kind of get them in line. And she comes in from the bat, basically like, oh, this is who I am. You're not going to control me. And I think that kind of rattles him. So it's going to be interesting to see, like you said, having watched the other 4 episodes and knowing what's coming. But, you know, just even in this episode, I was like, oh, she's about to be some trouble. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like, yeah, she's about to be trouble.
That's a good question. Do you think that, as far as a coup, do you think that maybe Mr. Edgar, in the back of his mind, has a plan C, and that part of that plan is to take out Homelander, and he's already got something other than Stormfront, but he just wants to use her as, I guess you could say, a front, Stormfront front. And to get who he really wants to be in charge, and who really wants to be in the Seven without getting caught.
I think that's possible.
Okay.
Just again, just from the way that even his character has come in this season, and you know, like I said, they don't seem to be doing a lot of damage control with Homelander, and I think it's kind of one of those things where, because everything with the soups has to do with public perception, has to do with points, has to do with numbers, it's kind of like one of those things where they're slowly letting him self-destruct before they take him out. I mean, I'm pretty sure if Edgar is as intelligent as he seems to be so far, I'm pretty sure they already know that he was probably in some way connected with Madeline Stillwell's death. So
I think
so I'm thinking maybe that's a possibility. Like they're just kind of giving him his own rope to hang himself with, and he's just slowly doing it without realizing that that's in fact what he's doing.
I kind of see him. He's kind of giving me, for some odd reason, Lex Luthor vibes. Because like you can see that he's in control, and that he has a plan, and you know that he has a backup plan. You know that he has a, in case of emergency, break glass box in his office, that if something happens, he's gonna be like, all right, smash, I'll take care of that. and you could tell that he likes being in control and that he doesn't want to relinquish that control easily. Like, if you're going to get control of him, you're really going to have to plan, plot, and execute whatever plan that you come up with to wrench power from his hands. And I really think that he's incredibly smart, and he's a really good tacticianer, and as far as measuring his words and saying things and not losing his cool and really being measured about what he says. And that's what that you see that in his vocal tone, where his voice never really rises from the level that it's on, and whatever he's explaining, whatever he's trying to dress you down, whatever he's trying to negotiate, his voice is even, and it kind of, I think that really is part of what gets him.
Yeah, like Mr. Singer said during the negotiation, like who are they going to report to exactly? He's like, who they've always reported to.
Me. Right.
And didn't he at some point, I can't quite remember, but didn't he at some point in season 1 tell Madeline that if she can't get them under control, that he would take care of it?
He did.
He did say that to her.
Yes,
He's
he
like,
did.
if need be, I can come up from the 67th floor, whatever floor I'm on, and take care of the situation. No, I got it. He's
Right.
Like, okay.
You're right. And I mean, even just in that exchange where he was talking to Mr. Singer and they were kind of ironing out terms, there was something that he said he wanted, and Mr. Singer was like, there's only one person who could authorize that. Do you want me to call the big house and get that done? And he's like, yes, you're going to call the president and demand this because this is what I want. And it's just, again, just the fact that he's so calm with everything when he says it, it's just kind of like, this man just told them to call the president and say, this is what we want, not asking for it, but saying this is what's going to happen. That's like a whole different level of confidence. That's like someone who knows that they have control of the situation.
Yeah, when Madeline went down, he probably broke the glass then. It was like, okay, well, it's time to get these plans in motion and take care of Homelander. Deal with that situation, because I don't have Madeline, and she had him under her thumb. Without her, this guy's going to lose it.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Homelander and Madeline, let me just say that his milk fetish is just weird. It's so weird to see him pull that bottle out of the fridge and just, he's just, I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah.
All right. I was wondering about that because I thought it was Compound V. I didn't realize it was actual milk. Okay.
So here's the thing, since you didn't watch season 1, so one of the ways that Madeline, and I don't know if this is the same in the comics, but one of the ways that Madeline had kind of control over Homelander is that there was this weird sexual relationship between them. And she was a new mother, a nursing mother. And so one of his things was that he would drink her breast milk. So what you saw in that episode was him taking her last bottle of breast milk out of her fridge and drinking it. Because, of course, she's dead. He doesn't have access to that. And yeah, it was a really weird kind of relationship between them. It's like she was supposed to be his boss, and then, when we see Homelander most of the time, he has this very arrogant persona about him, very much about ego, very much about being in control. But then there were some instances where we saw him interact with Madeline, and it was very much like a mother and a child. Like, he would lay in her office with his head in her lap, and she would rub his hair, and she would calm him, and then yes, the sex and the breast milk. Yeah, it was a really weird dynamic.
She wasn't his mother, was she?
No. We don't know who his parents were. Basically, he was raised from infancy at Vought. So he was raised in the lab. He was raised basically to have total control over his powers, and they pretty much treated him like a lab rat. He had no affection. He had no one there to kind of give him that guidance, which is probably one of the reasons why he's such a screwed up character, to his core. But yeah, so she kind of filled that role for him in a weird, like I said, weird. Yeah, it was really weird.
That's just creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
'cause there was times when he looked at her baby like as competition.
yes.
And I was concerned for the baby a few times.
Right.
Especially the last episode of season 1 when he actually confronted her, because he made threats to her that he was going to kill the child too. But as we saw in the first episode, that child survived. I don't know if it was because he had a momentary lapse of compassion, or if it, with him, it's kind of, you don't know what he's thinking. So I don't know if maybe that baby will play in some future, twist that I don't know.
Actually, I think that was a throwaway line the writers put in because they forgot about the baby in the explosion. And so they were like, "Oh, we forgot about that. Well, we have to put in a line. The baby was found 17 miles away, and we don't know how the baby got there." And then they moved on from there.
Oh yeah, that is true. Yeah,
I think it was just I think they literally forgot
that would be
what they were supposed to do with the baby, because if you watch the episode, that season finale, you really can't say that he grabbed the baby and took the baby and then came back. He grabbed the baby and butcher.
Gotcha.
If you really, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, that kind of makes sense.
You see what I'm saying? And then they were like, we forgot to account for that, so we have to put a mention in it because people are gonna ask questions.
Yeah, and I think
really kill a baby.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because then you really have to look at the character, the core character of this person. Like, okay, is he really so vengeful? Is he really so evil that he would just randomly kill a baby? I mean, I'm pretty sure there were probably some babies and some children on that plane he let crash, but we don't know that for sure. There was
definitely a child on that first private jet that he crashed.
Oh yes,
yeah,
you're right. There was. Okay, so we've talked about the soups. Let's talk about the boys, because they are like all kinds of messed up right now. Butcher is at this point, he's been missing the whole episode, shows up at the end, makes a dramatic entrance as he does. Huey has once again been like, I don't even know what to call it, splattered in blood and brains and drenched in blood. Like, they've just got so much going on with that group. You've got Kimiko, who is supposed to be super terrorist. She can't communicate. They don't know what to do with her right now. You've got Frenchie, who's just, let me say, Frenchie's my favorite character. I love him. But, you've got him who, he's trying to help them, I guess, start over, get away, because they're all wanted at this point. And, now there's like an added complication because there's a super terrorist that his friends that they smuggled in unknowingly to him. And now that's kind of pulling them back into this whole narrative. So, what are your thoughts on the boys? I mean, we have a lot to say about the soups, but
I think that they really needed to regroup after everything that happened, and the fact that Butcher wasn't there really hampered them at first. I think because he's a good leader in respects that he's willing to do anything to reach his goal, and he's not afraid to shoot people with baby with laser eyes. He's not afraid to hit somebody with his car. He doesn't matter to him. He's willing to do things by any means necessary. And I think they were missing that, and they really didn't have a direction. They were just squatting and chilling out and not really doing anything before he got back. So I think they were definitely missing somebody who was ready to go. And Huey tried to be that, but you see how that ended up. So I mean, and it ended up with the agent getting her head blown off. So he really, until like later on when we get into that, but at that moment, everybody really just seems to not have direction, or they're like they don't know what to do, so we're just gonna hang out, whatever. It's like they're just crashing at someone's house until they kick them out, basically. So it'll be interesting to see how Butcher, like, if there's going to be, there's going to be like a small power struggle, maybe a power struggle between Huey still trying to be a leader and Butcher, who's actually been the leader, trying to reclaim what is his, reclaim the authority that he had. And like, the struggle between them should be relatively interesting to see who gives in first, or see, Huey's going to give in at some point, but to see if Huey steps up and becomes like becomes a guy who's, nah, we're gonna do it my way. Screw you.
But it's so weird because I don't even look at Huey as like a leader type, because he doesn't want to be there in the first place. He didn't want to join. Right. Butcher basically brought him in, manipulated his emotions about the death of Robin, and just kind of pulled him in there, and like all this stuff has gone wrong. All this stuff, it's like Huey lost his girlfriend, lost his, his dad is, I don't even remember what happened to his dad. I think his dad is like gone for his safety. And then he falls into this weird kind of sort of relationship with Starlight that has also ended now. And it's just kind of, he's just in limbo. And I think he's only there because he really has nowhere else to be. And I honestly think that's the way it is for all of them. I mean, Mother's Milk can't go back to his family because of the danger. I don't think Frenchie really actually had anyone. And then Butcher's just, kind of taken off on his own selfish reasons, which pretty much has been his MO for the whole, from the beginning of the show.
Well, if you look at it, they're all like lost, and they're trying to find something.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that kind of holds them all together, I think. This hope that they can get something back, some semblance of the life they had before, or the life they had without all the super influence.
That's going to be hard to do when they're wanted men.
Yeah, I mean, it starts out with them wanting revenge. They all want revenge. We don't know what Frenchie wants, but it seems like it starts with revenge, and then it's gone down to they just kind of want their lives back. I know that's what Mother's Milk wants. Butcher wants Becca back. Huey just wants to live,
Right.
But back to what you were saying about the dynamics of leadership, it's like Frenchie said, Butcher was like Hannibal to the A-Team. That he was their Hannibal. He was their resource guy, their brains, the person that gave them direction. And they're missing that. They don't have a direction at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. He was trying. Yeah. And we see how that ended.
Right.
Not great. Were you guys
Poor Raina.
Were you guys surprised that Becca was still alive? Like, was that something you expected at the end of season 1, and with a kid to boot? But were you guys surprised by that reveal, and how do you think that's going to affect Butcher moving forward in the season?
In hindsight, I probably should have seen it coming, because that's kind of how TV shows do. It's like they'll introduce a character in the middle of the season that's kind of an important character, then they'll like put them off to the side, only to bring them back in the season finale where they're like, oh, we forgot about them. But I really, just hindsight's 2020, you really should have seen that coming. I wasn't expecting it. It was a shocker, especially to see her and Homelander's son. I was like, oh, that should be interesting. But yeah, I wasn't expecting it at all.
I wasn't expecting her to be alive, but I did think that the child would be alive. I was surprised to see her, and I should have, like Michael, I should have, hindsight, if the child was alive, then she probably should have been alive too.
Yeah.
But I just kind of figured the baby would have lived, but not her.
That's kind of that's kind of what I expected when Homelander confronted I guess it was the doctor or the scientist that used to work at Vought, the one who raised him and who was treating Becca at the time that she found out she was pregnant. Because I think that's the impression that he gave to Homelander, was that she died in childbirth. So I'm kind of with you. I thought that maybe the child had survived, but maybe she didn't. So to see her there, and then it kind of, because of the way that they left off the season, and you have Butcher's account of what happened, you have Homelander's account of what happened, and you have the doctor's account of what happened. So it's kind of like we don't know what the real story is at this point, and how that's going to affect Butcher. Like, did Homelander really rape her and she had this child and was, whisked away by Vought, or did she consent the way Homelander said, which I think is probably highly unlikely given who Homelander is. And then was she, in that case, was it still that Vought still put her in hiding, squared her away, hiding her, hiding the child, and if so, for what purpose? Like, I know they're not doing it to protect her from Butcher or, anything dealing with him. So there has to be something that Vought wants in regards to his child.
I think it's leverage. I think that if what happened, that they wouldn't kill her. They would do everything to keep her alive and the child, because somewhere down the road, you got to anticipate that Butcher or anybody else connected to this is going to want revenge. Like you said, but it is leverage to either keep them in line or have him, which is another plot point. If you want her and the child back, or if you just want her because it's Homelander's son, you have to do A, B, C, and D, or you have to bring me A, B, C, and E to me in order in exchange. So that's what I think.
So do you think that you think the leverage is maybe against Billy, but I would think maybe it was more so for Homelander, since we mentioned the fact that Vought seems to be losing their control over him. He found out about the child accidentally, so maybe it was just one of those things where, okay, one, we're going to keep this child safe and away from everyone else, and two, this will be something that if he starts to get too out of control, we can kind of dangle this in his face and say, hey, you either play the way we want you to play or blah, blah, blah.
Well, or they could do something else. They could be setting it up just like Translucent with his son Maverick, they showed at the funeral, which, by the way, I love the funeral. I thought that was cheesy as all get out. But the thing is, it was just bad.
It was.
But the thing is, think about it. Translucent and his son Maverick, right? So what would be an even better points for social media PR to have Homelander, America's hero, miraculously have the superhero, almost teenage pubescent teenage boy who follows in his dad's footsteps, so they're Batman and Robin. That would send the ratings through the roof.
Yeah.
Or could they be? Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm just saying, she's right. I mean, two are better than one. And the story, like, my long lost son, he's following in my footsteps, and I mean that's ratings gold for them. I mean, there's no way they wouldn't.
Or he could just be a failsafe. If they had him around long enough, and
that's what I was thinking.
They do something different this time. Have his mother raise him and give him all the basic moral beliefs and stuff. By the time he's old enough, maybe he'll be the one to take out Homelander.
That's what I was just thinking too. Like, that would be a great plot twist. You basically have this child who physically looks like you and has the same superpowers as you, but he's being raised in a totally different way than you were. So like you said, he can become even a better Homelander, a Homelander with the strength, with the superpowers, but also with the humanity and with the compassion,
the moral compass.
Right. Exactly. That would be interesting. So, yeah.
And as far as like, when when I talked about revenge, it changes his motivation from revenge to finding what he lost, like getting her back. That now becomes his motivation, because he was doing this for revenge. You know, like Huey, he started out doing it for revenge, but it's not kind of working out. So now he has Starlight. Same thing with Butcher. Butcher started out revenge, and now he has the hope of getting Becca back. And now Mother's Milk started out, maybe there was revenge for stuff, and now he wants to get back with his family.
Right.
Yeah? And it seems like all of their motivations are finally coming in line together, which will make them a more effective team, you know, other than being dysfunctional.
Right. Right. Okay, I think the only other thing I want to mention is when they mentioned the backstory about Vought, they made mention of Soldier Boy, who is the first quote-unquote soup that Vought produced. And I just had to mention that because that's another supernatural connection. We found out a few weeks ago that Jensen Ackles has been cast. Oh, no, I'm just saying he's been cast for season 3.
Season yet.
Yeah, he's cast for season 3. We just know that they're going to bring him into the show. We don't know how. I'm assuming it's probably going to be in the form of like flashbacks to that time. So, but yeah, I just had to mention that because yay, Supernatural's ending, but I still get to see Jensen on my screen, so I'm happy. Yay.
So are they bringing Soldier Boy in sort of like what they did with Wild Cards? We don't know. The only thing that we know is that his casting was announced a few weeks ago. We don't know how that's going to affect the story because he's not even appearing until season 3. Okay.
Yeah. Because
Wild Cards, they did that whole World War II superhero formula alien thing, and then they brought everyone forward each decade until they got to the present. And this is what it sort of sounds like to me.
Oh, okay. So that'll be really interesting.
I'm just waiting for the moment that Mr. Singer calls him an idiot. So.
That will be fun. That will be fun. So anybody else have anything to say about episode 1? I mean, we covered quite a lot, and let me just say, having watched the next few episodes, this season's going to be a doozy. So.
I just want to shout out to Stormfront's friend, who getting his arm chopped off. Starlight's friend, Gecko. Yes. Yeah. Is that not the most insane?
That was so weird.
Yeah. And in this world, you can see how they would take someone like him. He says he's really just in the lab to experiment. They just experiment on him because stuff grows back. And for him to make money like that is just beyond my capacity to understand.
I guess I kind of looked, because I thought it was weird when I first saw the scene, and I was like, first of all, who wants to pay for this? But then if you think about, when we hear about, even in real life, when we hear about like murderers and we hear about pedophiles and we hear about that type of element in our society, there are people.
There's so many fetishes, yeah.
Right, not even just a fetish, but you have some people who struggle with those kinds of evil thoughts, and I just kind of looked at it as that, that's kind of an outlet for someone where they can, I guess, act out that, hacking someone to death or hacking out or just cutting or being violent, where they're able to kind of get that out of their system with no repercussions, and it kind of keeps them from going out doing it to real people. That's just kind of how I looked at that scene. But even so, it's still weird to think that there is actually like there's a market for, hey, if you want to cut somebody's limbs off, you can pay such and such amount of money and get it done. It's just so weird. I mean, he made $1,400 that night for an arm and his penis. I mean,
another appendage.
It's That whole thing was weird. I don't know. This show has a lot of weird things.
I started thinking, well, he can make more money selling his organs on the black market,
And you know what? He may do that too.
There.
Yeah, I mean, we that may be something he's doing, and we just haven't gotten to that episode yet.
God,
just chipping off pieces of his liver and making like $10,000 a pop.
That will solve a lot of problems.
Yeah,
maybe.
Also watch out. There's a scene in the beginning when he was going to meet Starlight, where he walked past the poster. And I kind of don't want to mention it, but it goes back to...
No, don't mention that yet, because we'll have to address that in a future episode. So, yeah.
Okay.
Because, right...
I know what poster you're talking about, because I was watching it again, and I was like, wait, and we're back.
Okay, you got it? Okay, cool.
Oh,
yeah.
So we'll discuss that a couple of episodes from now. Yep.
All right. But, yeah, this whole first episode is... And we haven't even seen A-Train yet. It's like, they kind of flash back, and... I'm really interested to see the dynamic going forward with him. I'm interested in seeing them do more with Black Noir, since he was a really big part of the introduction to this season, where he went and cut off the head of the exploding Muslims.
Yeah, the super terrorists. Yeah,
like that whole scene was crazy, and finally get seen. He reminds me of a really violent Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe.
Yeah,
and I'm really interested to see how they handle him going forward, especially in this next episode, which I'm getting ready to watch in a few minutes after we get off.
Yeah, because we don't know a lot about his character yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm really interested to see when they get into him, because like the whole first season, the only thing I really remember about him is him playing the piano somewhere, and it's like that's really all they really showed about him.
Well, people who read the comic books knows who he is.
So I'm looking forward to that, to find out more about him.
I keep looking. I know, and I don't know if that's where they're gonna go with the comic book. I mean, the same as the show. Lori, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I do, because you have to remember The Boys was so controversial when it came out in comic form. It got sort of canceled mid-run because DC let several issues go before they realized, oh, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't print this. That was sort of the rating on it. It would be an X-rated comic book, and so it sort of got interrupted a little bit. But as far as the television show is concerned, it looks beautiful. It's got an amazing setup and story. Like I said, you could basically watch the first episode of season 2, watch the flashback, and you have enough knowledge to watch the first episode like I did with no problem. I can't wait to watch the next one. And, it's going to be cool. I probably will watch it later on tomorrow with my husband, because he literally is so excited about The Boys last season. He sat down at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he watched the entire season in one day.
That's what I did.
Dedication. I like this man.
Well, I mean, we do that a lot anyway, but I didn't watch it. For some reason, I was doing something, but he was like, this is my show, and I'm going to do it. So I'm excited to see what happens. And I think that the showrunners, have the right idea. I think that Amazon was the right venue for it. And it allows them to do a lot of things that they couldn't necessarily do, say, on Netflix or Hulu. And it's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, shout out to Seth Rogen on the production team, because he's on the production team for Preacher too, which is another one of my shows I have to get caught up with. But it's so weird that Seth Rogen is part of it. It's like I keep expecting to hear his laugh in the background somewhere in the scene.
Well, he did make a cameo in this episode, didn't he? He was talking about
on the news, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Translucent's film career,
movie,
whatever this was. Okay, cool.
I have to admit, I'm actually enjoyed it quite a lot. It surprised me how much I enjoyed it, because, like I said, I only watched one episode of the first season, and it's you can catch up, and it's fun.
Okay. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything, I guess that's it for our show. Thanks, guys, for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can find us at fandomhybrid.com, or on social media at Fandom Hybrid Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and Fandom Hybrid on Twitter. And that is it. Until next time, thanks for listening.